Hey guys, this video is going to be a book review of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke, which is a fantasy novel set in a very, very realistic Georgian England. Practical magic has fallen out of practice, but the subject still fascinates many, with a lot of men still claiming to be magicians of one form or another, some being purely theoretical magicians and others being fraudsters. However, all changes when a new practical magician comes on the scene. The tale of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell is a fascinating one. It's filled with small intrigues, a sense of wonder, and of course, magic. Mr. Norrell is the first practical magician in centuries, and is also the furthest from the expectation that the name suggests, being small, fussy, and uncharismatic. However, he performs a great many feats of magic that aid the country in the Napoleonic Wars, such as confusing Napoleon's admirals with false images of ghostly ships, which they can't act against just in case. Soon after, Jonathan Strange comes on the scene, another practical magician, and becomes somewhat of an apprentice to Mr. Norrell. And in contrast, Strange really seems to fit the dashing magician stereotype far more neatly than Norrell does. There is a lot of tension between the two of them based on the sharing, or lack thereof, of knowledge to do with magic. And eventually, there is a falling out based on this. But will these two rivals and their tensions really cause the renewal of English magic, or will it be its downfall? And what do a prophecy and fairies have to do with it all? I took quite a long time to read this book, and at the end of it, I really wasn't quite sure what to think of it. At all. Don't get me wrong, I liked a lot of things in this book, and there were some moments where I was just going, wow, at how clever it was, but there was just a strange sort of feeling to it that, along with the length of it, kept me from fully connecting to it in the way that I kind of like to. Another thing that I felt kind of weird about to do with this book was the footnotes. The footnotes, I hear you ask? Yes, the footnotes. There were too bloody many of them in this book, and the ones that there were really, really long in many places. Like, taking up multiple pages. And I was like, what? Like, I did enjoy the additional information that added to the realism of the world, but like, you could have cut them out and it would have been like a much shorter book in a lot of ways. It was just a bit ridiculous. You should not actually have pages fully dedicated to footnotes. I don't... There were so many footnotes, and they were so long that it broke the immersion of the story for me quite a bit. And I tried to add to it, but it was taking me out of it, so I didn't really appreciate that very much. That all said, I'm going to talk about the characters for a bit. There are only a handful of characters who get a proper point of view as such, who are namely Jonathan Strange himself, John Segundus, John Childermas, and Stephen Black, with slightly less major points of view going to Norrell himself, the Shells, Drawlight, and Mrs. Strange. Most of the characters are by and large unlikable, but in a good way, as you kind of sort of learn to respect them as such for making the decisions that they make, and sort of the hard to explain. Strange and Segundus were in particular my favourites. I really liked them, and their way of doing things was really, really quite cool. I liked Segundus in particular because he was a decent person who just wanted to actually bring it back, the magic. Though I also found that they were possibly the most relatable characters in a lot of ways. Though I also do have to say that I found Mrs. Strange to be really, really a good character, and I wish that she had been slightly more front and centre in the book than she was, because it wasn't that she had a particularly small role, it was more of just a background role. You could sort of see what was happening to her, but like, I wish she had had more of a primary role instead of a more secondary role in comparison to the others. Another thing I liked about the book was that the magic was treated somewhat like a science by Strange and Norrell, even if it doesn't actually work like a hard science, like a hard magic. I'll link in the description a good article by Brandon Sanderson, who wrote the Mistborn series and various other ones that I've done, about hard and soft magic, which is really, really interesting, and I think you should check it out if you can. One last thing that I want to mention is that fairies and prophecies were included in a very interesting way in this book. The fairies are sort of tricksy and mischievous and also kind of malicious in a lot of ways, while the prophecy was pretty straightforward but misinterpreted a lot, which is quite different from the way that prophecies are generally portrayed in fiction. They're, you know, generally more ambiguous and everything doesn't quite add up until everything's happened and you're like, oh, that's how it was meant to work. Whereas in this one it was just like, yep, no, that's pretty obvious. That's saying the exact thing that's going to happen. But the fairies were most definitely on the nose for what they usually are in fiction of this sort. But I don't know how to feel because of the prophecy thing that I was just saying about. It made things a little bit confusing for me, because I was like, this is going to just backfire in this particular way, sort of thing. Just a little bit odd. Overall, I did enjoy this book for its interesting take on things and different sort of ideas that were put forward, as well as its well-written characters. However, it did have some very strange choices and some bizarre stylings that I wasn't sure about. Let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed this book, if you've read it, and if you haven't yet, I would like to know what is the favourite fictional magic system that you've encountered. My personal favourite is probably Farukami from the Mistborn books, because you have to be really clever in how you store and use the abilities in it. And yeah, I really like that. I'd love to hear what you think, so let me know down below. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you remember to like and share it and subscribe to my channel. Click on the thumbnails down below to see other videos by me, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.